Hello, everyone. Great to have you here for our expert panel Q&A webinar. We do one of these every month as part of the Keep Optimizing podcast. And this month, we're talking email marketing. And we've had 5 brilliant guests across the month. And 4 of them are here today to talk to us about what should be on your to-do list right now. And at this point, I also have to give a big thank you to our sponsors, KLAVIYO, who may be mentioned again today, amongst other email marketing providers, because they're the ones who sponsor the Keep Optimizing podcast. So they enable all this to happen. Okay, who have I got coming on in a moment or two to join me to talk about all that's going on in the world of email at the moment, and also to answer your questions. So if you're here, one of our lovely attendees, if you're here live, please do add your questions now in the chat box, because if you leave it right until the end, I might not have time to ask your questions, but if you put them in now, I will make sure I have time to ask your questions of our guests. So add those questions now in the chat box. I've had quite a few submitted via social media and email, so I've got plenty to be getting on with. But if you've got a key question to ask, please do add it in the chat box now or at any point during today's session. And this will be available for replay within a few hours of it actually happening. So if you want to share it with your team or anything like that, you can do that too. So who am I going to be joined by today? Okay, first up, we have the amazing Jessica Totillo Costa from eCommerce Badassery, who is also one of our brand new eCommerce MasterPlan crew. These are the brilliant selection of consultants and advisors that I'm building up to enable you to have someone to help you, because quite frankly, I just don't have the bandwidth to do it all myself. So we've got various experts. Jessica's our email marketing expert, and so she's here. She's also very into KLAVIYO. So, and we had last night was the big KLAVIYO update, so we will be touching on that later. We've also got, definitely not from KLAVIYO, Gabe Macaluso, who's from Omnisend, which is the platform I used to do my email marketing, and I know a lot of you use too. And if you wanted to start your free trial of Omnisend, then you can do that at omnisend.com/masterplan. Oh, and I should have said, if you want to get a discovery call with Jessica, you can get that at ecommercemasterplan.com/crew. Then we've got Kunle Campbell, who you may know from the awesome 2x e-commerce podcast. He is an advisor to D2C e-commerce brands, and you can find him and his podcast at 2x-ecommerce.com. And then we have Corinne Watson, whose name is just not working in my head today, and she has forgiven me for that already. But she is an e-commerce genius, like me. I think like Kunle as well. We've all come on to several top e-commerce influencer lists this year. So you've got some amazing people here to answer your questions. And she's here to talk about SMS. Which is that podcast only went live this morning, so you may not have had a chance to listen yet. Make sure you do. And if you've got any SMS related questions, we'll be covering those as well today. And she's from postscript.io, and you can find out more about that SMS platform at postscript.io. And then you got me, who on the podcast sounds a lot more together than I do today. Sorry about that. I will try and pull it together as we go through today's webinar. But I'm the host of the Keep Optimizing an eCommerce MasterPlan podcast, bestselling author. And you can find the podcast that we're talking about today, the Keep Optimizing one, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. Or just head to keepoptimizing.com to find all the different marketing methods that we cover. Right, it is most definitely time to get our guests up here. So, guys, do you want to turn back on your video and your audio and come and join me, please? And we will get chatting. There we go. So, hold on. I need to be able to see the chat box in case any of you guys are asking questions. That's good. How are we all doing today?
Good. Chloe, how are you?
I'm good. I can hear, I think, all of you as well. So that's a good thing too. Yeah, I've given a quick intro of what you guys are about, but let's give the audience an intro as well. So, Gabe, do you just want to let the audience know who you are and where you're from and where you're coming from as well? Because we're from all over the world today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Chloe. So my name is Gabe Macaluso. Good thing about my last name is I'm really easy to find on LinkedIn because there's not many of us. But I'm the Director of Customer Success at Omnisend. Have been in the email space for 8, 9, I don't know, a lot of years, but came via Bronto, which I know is something we're going to be talking about today, but live in Charleston, South Carolina today.
Chloe, you're muted.
Ah, man, don't you say hit that one. Am I muted now? No.
Yeah, we can hear
No, excellent. See, I don't know what it is today, everybody. The brain has just given up on tech. So if we make it to the end of this without me taking us off air, it's going to be a miracle. Corinne, how are you and where are you coming in from today and what are you all about?
Yeah, well, first things first, Chloe, thank you for hosting. I'm sure we're going to have some riveting conversations today. I am calling from good old Austin, Texas, where it is really windy and kind of cold out, unfortunately. But anyways, I am the Senior Content Marketing Manager at Postscript. We are an SMS platform for brands on Shopify and Shopify Plus. I'm basically the writer and researcher over there, basically teaching the world how to use SMS right. I, previous to Postscript, was at BigCommerce leading their content marketing program for about 2 years. So I've been in the e-com space for a while. Absolutely love it. Don't want to go anywhere else.
Excellent. Neither do I. Jessica, how about you?
Hi, so my name is Jessica Totillo Coster. My company is eCommerce Badassery, and I also host the eCommerce Badassery podcast. But I teach scrappy entrepreneurs how to grow their traffic, sales, and profit. I've been in retail for 20 plus years. I spent 3 years as the only employee of a multi-7-figure e-commerce business. It was a rough few years. I cried a lot, but I learned a lot too. And so now I'm teaching everything that I learned the hard way. And I am KLAVIYO's unofficial #1 fan.
Okay. And Kunle, I think you're currently muted. So if we can hear you. Yeah, there we go. Cool.
No, that's it. Okay, hi guys. I'm Kunle Campbell. I'm dialing in from Oxford, UK, so I'm closest to Chloe. Chloe, thanks for having us in, and I'm in great company. I'm from 2X eCommerce, and we essentially just educate through the podcast for now, just direct-to-consumer e-commerce businesses on acquisition and retention. And I'm hoping to add some value in this webinar. I'm very, very glad to be here.
And it's great to have all of you here because this is, I had a joke with someone the other day on an event that there's only so many e-commerce podcasters you can put on one stream without it all falling apart. So maybe that's what's wrong with me today because we've got kind of like 3 and a bit of us going on here. And we've got like some amazing minds in the marketing space as well. So there's a lot here. I can see we've got several of you now tuned in. If you've got questions, do add them in the box. But like I said, we've got quite a bit to cover because actually we're not normally a news show on these webinars, but given what's been going on at the moment, I think we kind of have to be today. Let's start, therefore, with the KLAVIYO update that happened last night that I have not yet had time to fully catch up on. So, Jessica, as you said, you're their #1 fan. Do you want to give us the quick key points of what actually happened last night? And then if anyone wants to jump in, I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, given where loyalties are lying. They're in various angles on here. But if anyone would like to jump in with thoughts on that, we'll do that as well. So, Jessica, the bullet point of what's been going on, because I know you've been sharing that all over social for about the last 24 hours solid, I think.
Yes, for sure. So they had 2 big announcements, which were at first when I was watching it, like, wait, this is old news. What's happening? But I kept watching. So they talked about their SMS, which is now built into the platform. But the big change there from their initial beta version is that they now allow for 2-way conversations with the customer. And that's what was missing and was my gripe with them previously, is if somebody responded to you, you could see it, but you couldn't answer them. And now you can. And then the other thing that they announced, which has been out for a little bit, is inside of the platform, they have benchmarks of people similar to you in your industry. So you can look at your email performance against your peers. And it's all right in the dashboard, which is nice because a lot of us, there's general benchmarks, there's your own numbers, but I mean, we all kind of want to know how we're stacking up against our competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
I find that benchmarks bit really intriguing because I'm sure all of you get to experience. It's like the #1 question you get asked in email marketing is, what should my open rate be? Yeah. And the #2 is, what day should I send my emails on? And in my mind, they're both utterly, utterly pointless questions because there's so many things that affect them. You've just got to find the right one for you. So I totally get why they're making a big thing of the benchmarks. and that because people want to hear it, it may lead them to do better things. But I also wonder, I mean, really, is there any point to it? It just strikes me as a bit of, and I'm a very much a your only benchmark is your own, and I regularly refuse to give people benchmarks, probably much to their annoyance. But I think that just seems like a bit of a marketing ploy to me. Anyone? I think Jessica disagrees with me on this, but any of the rest of you have
not
another point of view on it?
Yeah, no, not necessarily. Just from working one-on-one with clients, is as soon as they started seeing those, they started second guessing everything they've ever done, every email they've ever sent, and it kind of takes their eye off the prize. So I understand why they did it. I think it's a cool feature, but I would just warn anyone who uses the platform to not take that as gospel and really just be better than you were yesterday.
Gabe, you're nodding a lot on the benchmarks there.
The benchmarks are super cool. I think if anything, it's a tactic for the KLAVIYO employees to have more bandwidth to actually execute on things for their customers from a strategic point of view. We spend so much time on our customer success team where it's like benchmarks and we have these conversations. And so to eliminate that conversation altogether is that's a huge time free. Cool.
Automate that conversation and we can talk about something more important.
Exactly. But I mean, we talked about this, I think, on our podcast, and it's I've sat down with customers before and it's I can get you to a 80% open rate all day, every day. But ultimately you have to combine that with revenue. So, it's really easy to tell customers, hey, you have 100,000 contacts, 60,000 of them haven't opened an email in a year. So if we get rid of those, and they're like, wait, you want me to get rid of 60% of my list? Nope, not happening. I spent a lot of money on those. And so you have, I think Jessica, put it spot on. You have to have that sort of conversation where it's yes, these are benchmarks. Yes, they're helpful, but ultimately revenue is going to be your bottom line. So if I can get a 12% open rate and record revenue versus a 50% open rate and my revenue is, a third of what I was making, I'd rather take the 12% open rate all day.
Yeah.
Kunle?
No, I think it's a starting. Well, if it's not a marketing gimmick, it's a starting point towards actually having an assisted AI type feature within the platform. So let's say you have benchmarks, for instance. Open rates benchmarks against similar brands is 40%. I'm hoping that they'll be able to build up on it to say, okay, exactly why didn't you hit the benchmark? Here are certain things we picked up from your setup that makes you fall short of those marks. They shouldn't stop there. They should really try and build up off the back of this. And people are going to still have these conversations. I can imagine some of the e-commerce stores I advise for. They would say, hey, Kunle, we're not hitting, it looks like, click rates are 3%, why the heck, a few of our emails in this flow not hitting the benchmark? And I'll be like, okay, let me have a look at it. And this could be the cause. But if they could then automate all of that, then obviously it it takes me out of the equation, but it saves us time, as the other speakers have alluded to. So
yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Corinne, any thoughts from you on the whole piece or the benchmarks piece?
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, I love the fact that we're looking more at benchmarks. I think for the past 2 years or so, it's just about getting people onto the channel, and now that we're kind of refining it, that's awesome. From a journalistic standpoint, I love working and understanding original data with brands. So I can't wait to see how people report out on that and use it as a bragging right. I can't help but think that when merchants are looking at all of these metrics in their accounts, they should probably take a step back and understand how much time they're going to be spending optimizing for those versus looking at their entire e-commerce operation. Because if you spend all your time exploring email and refining to get a 2% increase in your click-through rate, there could be other opportunities that are a lot easier that you're leaving on the table. So I think that KLAVIYO's benchmarks are great for brands at a very certain stage of growth. Whereas if it's something that everyone starts paying attention to, we might get a little bit caught up in what we like to call vanity metrics.
Cool. Well, look, we're going to leave that piece of news and we're going to leave the news segment till later. So we're going to talk a little bit later on. We'll come back to Bronto and what that means for people. But those of you who have now logged in, if you want to leave us questions, please do put that in the chat box. The sooner you leave them, the more chance there is that I will get them asked. I'm doing the asking. I'll get them answered for you by our guests. So please do that. And I can see that Anna has now joined us from Italy, and Anna emailed me with a question earlier today. So we're going to start off with Anna's question, because she both emailed me and she's turned up live. So if that doesn't deserve getting your question answered, I do not know what does. Because it's a really cool question as well. It got me thinking. It wasn't one I would have thought to ask. So this is about the email sender. So Anna sends her transactional emails from shop at, but she was thinking about using a more personal one for the newsletters, i.e. Anna at. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? Partly because the transactional emails have the higher open rate. So should you use the same send address? Should you use different addresses? Are there benefits? Is it okay if the domain name's the same? I've added some extras into there. What would you say in terms of should you be using different for transactional and for marketing? Anyone can jump in.
Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so a fantastic case study is from Naked Wines. I think Eamon is his name. So when you look at all the emails from Naked Wines, I think apart from the transactional emails, so their flows, their broadcast comes from this chap called Eamon. Now, I've never seen him before, and their founder is certainly not called Eamon, but like the whole tone, the tonality, of the voice and tone of their brand is just bang on. It feels like I'm speaking to my neighbor, but that's their strategy. And so every email comes from there. It's worth sort of getting into their flow to understudy. I don't think it should be like a tactic per se. It has to be within your overarching email marketing strategy. Beyond even that, your marketing strategy, where you say, what are my tone and voice, and how can I add personality to this tone and voice across all channels, not just email. I was having a conversation with someone yesterday, and this is not even regarding to email. And it was like with Octopus Energy in the UK. I don't know whether you've come across it, Chloe. But Octopus Energy, I'm a customer, and what they've been able to do from a look and feel. I was telling him, like, it feels like I'm talking to a cartoon character. So they have this mascot of an octopus, but like the way they've invested in their UX and their UI and their copywriting has just created this entity where you feel it's real. It's your friend, essentially, like a virtual reality friend. Something you'd find online. So you need to think about your overarching strategy, what you're trying to achieve. What image, what third party.
It's like it's not a chuck a name on the front and it'll work.
No, not at all.
Does it fit with the whole piece of what you're doing?
Who are we as a brand? Yeah.
Anyone disagree? Gabe, you look like you want to jump in.
No, I was going to agree with him. And Tommy John, they're an underwear brand here in the States. Like, they're one of my favorites in terms of the way they market and stuff. And I worked with them for a long time. And they use different from names depending on the flows. And they even have different from names at different parts in the flow. So in their onboarding flow, they do a good job of mixing up text-only content, which is obviously another unique strategy. So the text-only emails are supposed to look like a personal email. So they had this whole like support rep that they made up, and like, it came from her. They do like letters from the founders that are a little bit more graphical, but still very heavy text-based. And then they have obviously their bigger like traditional campaigns and content and that kind of stuff. And those are more just, shop at Tommy John. So they are constantly mixing in and out from addresses. People I know will always look to say like, oh, if it's image based, or if I use emojis in subject lines, I'm not going to get to the inbox. And you have to understand, like, Gmail, we'll kind of just focus on Gmail because Gmail is going to be the biggest part of all of our list. Gmail is all about engagement. And it doesn't matter if it goes in the promotions tab or the primary tab, like that's all considered inbox placement. So maybe you tweak and you play around with this, and sometimes you get lucky and it gets to the primary inbox, but that's just a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's all relevant because these are the kinds of questions we get because they're trying to optimize that inbox placement and they're so focused on, can I get it in the primary tab and avoid the promotion tab? But promotion is inbox, you're good, people are going to shop, you'll be okay.
So it strikes me that we kind of, actually go for it. I will come with my question in a second.
I think Gabe brings up a really good point about like inbox optimization. I can't help but think that we should probably take a step back and make sure that if you're adding your from name to be from a person, let's make sure that you have the customer support in order to respond to the inquiries that will come from that. Like I know the past year has been really nutty, and I can't help but think of all the brands that have placed an emphasis on like empathetic communication with customers. And if you're coming from an info at and a customer responds, they likely will think that they're going to be get put into like a customer service funnel. But if it's coming from a founder, if it's coming from, the CEO, hopefully you should have someone on the other end of the line to respond to that. It's the same thing with when we're advising folks on using SMS as a conversational tool. There's nothing worse than just getting left on red and not having anyone respond to you. So making sure that you have someone at the other end of the line who can quickly respond, I think is really important.
That feeds into what I was going to ask, which was so far with what Gabe and Kunle are saying, we're kind of almost talking about the from name rather than the from email address. And with Karen, what you're saying, it kind of, in my head, it's like, right, so we're definitely not sending from a no reply at for starters. Yeah. But would you use shop at for all of these, no matter what the from name is? Or do we need to change what comes before the at as we change the from name? Any thoughts or deliverability opinions?
It doesn't. I don't think it really matters. It's really just what you want your brand to be. I mean, if you want to do 8 different versions of it just because you want to, go for it. I mean, this is optimizing something. Like, I hope that you have 50 different automations running on autopilot in the background and driving ROI, because those are way more important things to be focused on than like highlighting the from name or from sender's address. Like there's much bigger fish to fry and much more revenue to make outside of that sort of strategy.
Got you. So I think what I'm taking is the from name is kind of for marketing purposes. What comes before the at is more for where the responses go to, so they get dealt with. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Jessica, anything to add on this topic before we move on?
Just ultimately, if this was really, really important to you and you really wanted to know the impact, is you just have to test it. Right. That's the only way to really know. I've had clients who, will have the email come from the founder, and they tested that against coming from their customer service employee, who was an actual real person. And it worked better when it was from the customer service person, when you would think that it was like her brand is actually her name. Like, she is the face of her brand, but it was still coming from her customer service person. That worked better. So just test it if you think it's really important. But to Gabe's point, like, there's a lot of other stuff you could be spending your time on instead.
It is kind of endless in email, isn't it? So let's take that and let's go an answer from each of you as to what is the top thing you'd be testing in the average e-commerce account. So let's assume they've got a welcome campaign, they've got abandoned baskets, they're running some newsletters, they've done the key things. What would you be testing or recommending to the audience as a key thing to put on their testing list? Who wants to jump in first? Or do you all want time? Do you want me to waffle for a bit whilst you have a think?
Well, I have a thought on this, and it's not the traditional test your subject line and not that you shouldn't do that. But I think one of the things that we don't test is when we think about a win back campaign, or maybe people who have, signed up for our list and never purchased from us, is I would start testing time delays, really, and try and figure out when is the right time to reach back out to that customer. And there are some tools that say they can do it for you with their algorithm. I've never found that to be super successful. I'd rather just do a bunch of good old splitting and testing myself personally. And then, time, day of week, and time of day. Like you said, Chloe, that's like the number 2 question.
Yeah.
Here's how you figure it out. send a lot of emails and test.
And pray nothing interesting happens in the world during the week you're testing.
True.
Because that just throws it all away.
And then you have to make sure that your content's the same. Like, I can't tell you how many times people will do different content or different time and day of week. But then, like, their first week they tested on a Tuesday was a site-wide flash sale. And then 2 weeks later, they're sending on a Thursday. And it's like, you know,
we've got a new blog.
100% content based. That's like, hey, here's how our team is helping give back to the community, which is great. It's super important, but there's literally no CTA, no products, no nothing. Like, why didn't this email convert? It's like, well, like, it's not, you're testing too many variables. So yeah, I would say that. But I think in terms of the one thing, I would say testing content is extremely important. The amount of time that I spend with folks that going, hey, so every e-commerce brand knows what they have to deal with in customer support and the types of questions that they get. Like, where do I add my discount code? How do I check out? Like, very basic questions that we think, living and breathing this stuff all the time, are like second nature. So just talking to people like, hey, when you have a giant, beautiful image, if you don't have a click here to save or click this giant red button so that you can actually shop and save, if you don't include buttons, people get lost and don't click on things. They just look at it, they think it's pretty, and then they leave. You actually have to tell them, do this. So I would say make sure you test. And obviously people have brand and they have brand image awareness. And so they want to make sure they're not cheapening it with like a discount or any of that kind of stuff, but just adding buttons and thinking like there's no way that people like this will improve it. But abandoned cart emails all the time, return to cart, here's the button. And again, we don't want to be too forward. We don't want to say like buy now, because that sounds cheesy for a luxury brand. But, you know, be punny, be creative with it. You know, we've saved your basket, click here to return. Like all of this general languages, like that's going to be the biggest thing to test because it's going to show that you're going to get an increased revenue. Okay,
who's got another one thing to test?
Yeah, so a few things to consider is so most brands, well, small brands, small medium-sized brands, will create a flow, and the flow will be flat. One thing to test really is like customer categories. So based off on like average order value, you could test pretty much. So for more, you could test pretty much if like in their cart, there's a threshold there. Let's be, do this, So with the welcome series, you could increase the incentive for higher, basket size. So you could test basket sizes essentially. Another thing to test would be the email type, whether it's like a text-based email versus, more graphic type emails. And remember, within the text-based emails, go for story. Make sure the links actually stand out to effectively just test that. So I'd say, customer types in terms of like what they're doing, essentially just categorizing customers by what they're purchasing, and email types.
Cool. Yeah. Anyone who wants more on that, we went into quite a lot of segmentation on the episode Kunle and I did, so you can get some more on that if you listen back to that episode. Corinne, I'm guessing SMS might be in your list of key things to test.
Yeah, I was going to see if I could get away with two.
I'll let you have two.
The first one being, you're right, SMS. I definitely have my blinders on, and I'm working with brands that use SMS day in and day out. But if I look at the broader e-commerce world as a whole, there are still so many brands who haven't tested that channel. And I think this past year has shown that customers are actually really familiar with and happy to receive texts from brands, which is very different than, the decade prior. So I would say testing out SMS as a strategy. And then on the flip side, if I can do one more, I often receive transactional emails from brands that are just not optimized whatsoever. And if you look at open rates across all different types of email promotions, transactional emails get the best open rates. So if you're not making use of the space below the order details or the shipping details or what have you, consider throwing something like a recommended add-on or something below that to help nurture folks down the funnel.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of adding anything marketing to a transactional email, and it's like, add it, please, add it. Unless it's like a terrible bad news email, like, we blew up your order. You're never getting it. We're not giving you your money back. Put something marketing in there because people will be interested to buy. Right. I think we should do our next news item. It seems very bizarre to be doing news in these. We usually keep very far away from it. But whilst we're doing that news item, if any of you tuned in want to get one of your questions about email, maybe something we've been talking about already, maybe something else that's been inspired by the podcast, or anything to do with email or SMS, drop it in the chat box, and I will do my best to get it answered for you as we go through the rest of the time. But the other big news story in email is that Bronto, or whoever it is that currently owns Bronto, Oracle, NetSuite, etc., have announced they're just going to turn it off. I think, is it March 2022? Is that right? Yeah? May. I knew it began with an M. May 2022. So I guess let's not get into the whys and wherefores of this, because that could take us the rest of the hour and not be that useful to anybody apart from our own intrigueness. What would your advice be to anyone who's thinking of leaving Bronto? And Gabe, I'm going to start with you because you worked at Bronto, so I think you're probably a good place to start with this one.
Yeah, I mean, so I was at Bronto for I was there from 2014 to 2020, so a long time. Watched the rise of KLAVIYO, right? So it's because Bronto always had this sort of special place in the IR 1000, and obviously has some very, very large enterprisey clients. So I think anytime you go through a technology evaluation when you're looking at email, you just have to ask yourself those questions of, what am I looking for? What problem am I actually trying to solve? And what tools do I need to make myself effective to reach those goals? That's going to be the biggest thing. So, I mean, you're going to have your normal list of suspects out there. ListTrack at one point, I think, was hosting a Bronto retirement party. KLAVIYO has a massive marketing team, so they're all over it. Omnisend, we're doing our due diligence, and, there's several former Brontos at Omnisend. So, we obviously have a leg up in that situation, but every ESP is not created equal, and every ESP is not going to solve the same problems for every group. So, I've had several former customers reach out to me, and it's like, hey, we're not the right fit for you. But we know people in the space. So if you talk to ListTrack, if you talk to Cordial, if you talk to KLAVIYO, if you Amarsis is still around, Digital is still around, all these people are still here. So, they're gonna be chomping at the bit. So the big thing is just, have those open, transparent conversations and just really kind of go with what makes you feel good about it. Bronto did a great job of being there, the nice guys, and they're going to go above and beyond for their customers. And so that's what these Bronto customers are going to be looking for. So they just have to find that culture fit for them that's going to make the most sense.
Yeah, I think you've possibly just given the ultimate answer there, Gabe, which is, go work out what you actually want. Because for me, this is all very reminiscent of the Magento 1.2 issue. It's an amazing opportunity to work out what you should do. But if we think about the Magento 1.2 issue, the huge thing I think everyone learned from that is that time is a big factor in these things. So for anyone in that scenario, and if everyone's got other opinions on the first question asked around this, but also I'd like to bring into it, when should people be looking to move? Because leaving it till April 2022 is not a good move. No. Jessica, what do you think on timing and the whole thing?
Yeah, don't do that. Start now. Start researching now. Start looking now. Fun fact, I actually migrated from Bronto to KLAVIYO in about 3 days. And it was very, very stressful with, 200,000 subscribers, this whole thing, and the way the platforms are set up are different. You want to make sure wherever you move, make sure you're giving yourself time to truly understand that platform and how it works, how it stores its data, because it's different. It's going to be different. Just start doing it now. That's my 2 cents there.
Presumably there's a certain, because with the shift from the Magento 1, Magento 2, there's obviously the agency network who are bearing the brunt of it, who are more expandable than an actual software platform. And if you're doing the migration from one email service provider to another, a lot of that work falls on you, and then it falls on the ESP themselves, and they only have so much bandwidth. So if you want a smooth transition, I would argue it's worth moving now. Yeah. Rather than them. Kunle, have you seen anyone deliberating with this at the moment? Anything extra you'd add?
No, not that I know of. I have 2 clients on eMasters and another 2 on KLAVIYO. So can't really, but yeah, just now is the time. Just echoing what you said.
Yeah, I think I would certainly be looking to do it before Q4, so I was up and running. It's a summer project, isn't it? It's not a lead till later.
Yeah.
Corinne, any thoughts on the importance of including SMS, I suppose, in that choice for the next move?
Yeah, I mean, I would absolutely encourage brands to look at ESPs that have SMS as an option, or to look at adding SMS as a standalone platform as they're evaluating. Not only looking at the goals that you want to hit in the next 6 months, but in the next 3 years. And for many brands, SMS is likely going to be part of that picture. So
yeah,
I think do it.
Yeah,
I will say that I use Bronto as a really young marketer in my first job out of school, and it has a small place in my heart. And I think that we need to find another e-com tech brand to have a dinosaur mascot.
Yes, I've been talking about this with weirdly, every time you cannot talk about Bronto ending without people wanting inflatable dinosaurs.
Yeah.
I used to have one. I lost mine. I think I left it at the office where I used to work, but I had one of those. He used to sit in my little tree. Yeah. He was so cute though.
Gabe's got the Bronto mug on the go.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a cease and desist notice from Oracle now, because that logo is not supposed to be used anymore. But
I look forward to seeing that on eBay in a few years, Gabe.
Yeah.
Our niche audience of email geeks. Wow, that's an old Bronto one.
Yeah.
I think all mine was stolen by other people's children. All my Bronto squidgy inflatable dinosaurs. Okay, we have now definitely finished the news, so it's time for me to grab another question from those who sent me them in advance. Whilst I'm doing this, guys, I know you're listening. You've been tuning in from the beginning. You're sticking around, so you're clearly liking what we're talking about. But if you want us to personalize it to you, now is your chance to get a question up there, because if you don't add it fairly soon, I'm going to run out of time to ask it for you. So if you've got a question, add it in the chat box now. Okay, I've got 3 of them here. Okay. Here we go. This kind of probably counts in the top 5 of email questions that are really annoying that people ask, but I'm going to spin it so it becomes quite useful. So this question. Oh, and I'm echoing on someone. Is it you?
It's not me. I just checked.
Someone's echoing me. Oh, that stopped. Okay, cool. All right for the minute. I will ask the question, then you can unmute yourself again, Gabe. So this is a question around how often should we email? It's been asked by Chloe Wilcox, who I'm partly asking her question because she's got an awesome name. She says, email is the place where so many brands that I love go and spoil it, getting too clingy and emailing way too much. So what's the rule of thumb on frequency that works best for engagement and open rate for existing customers? And none of you are allowed to say test as a one-word answer. That's forbidden. So we need a little bit more on how you go about working out that frequency, because I think it's a big question for people. You know, how fast does my welcome campaign go out? How many abandoned baskets should I send? How often should I email? So some more useful answers than the one-word test, please. Who wants to jump in?
Everyone's
you're
quiet.
laughing. Okay. You have to answer.
I'll go. So you should test, of course, but that's not my only answer. You're not going to like this one either, though, but it depends, right? It depends a little bit on your business. It depends on how big your list is. It depends on how often the customer needs to come back and buy your product. Is it consumable, or do they only need to buy from you once every 6 months? So start thinking about, that whole customer journey, how long that really is, and how often you need to send to them to stay in touch. If you are a one product store, you're likely going to email less than if you have a really wide assortment. How many customer avatars do you have? You might have a wide assortment and have, 3 distinct customer avatars. And so you're emailing more frequently. And then the other thing is ask them, what they want. That's my favorite way to figure it out. And then the last thing I would say here is, what expectation did you set in the beginning? So I know brands that successfully email every single day. And if they don't email, the customer's like, hey, where's my email? Like, what's going on? I haven't heard from you. So it's really important to think about what your customer needs from you and what you can realistically do consistently, because the consistency is more important than the frequency.
Nice answer.
Is that better?
Yeah, we'll take that. That was a good expansion on test. Kunle, Gabe, anything you'd like to bring into the mix?
Oh yeah, I'll go. So in regards to frequency, I would say, so you need to look at it two ways. One is, what are you sending? What messages are you sending? Are you sending content related messages, or are you, are these flows, are these, offers on a regular basis? Now, if you look at like a brand like Chubby's, I mean, they're sending twice a week, I think. And there's always an offer. It matches some sort of micro or mini product launch. So if like your business, your merchandising, your products actually, dictates, the fact that you need to let people, be aware of the fact that, things are changing in the back end in terms of like, your products are always getting refreshed, then that is, a more than sufficient reason to let your base know, your core base know, about, what's happening in the company. Now, if there's not much frequency where like, products, launch once a year or even once in 2 years, then you might have to think about a content play where, it could be a podcast, it could be, YouTube channel. And that sort of gives you the, it gives you the excuse to get into their inbox saying, hey, we've got a new show, we've put in this, content. So you need to sort of, think about, what your company is doing, and then, what your merchandise is, just the setup of your company. And then off the back of that, decide how frequently you're going to let people know about it.
Nice. The content first approach.
Mm.
Oh, Gabe, I can't hear you now. It tells me you're not muted, but I can't hear you. So whilst we work that out, no, I still can't hear you. Corinne, is it the same with SMS? That frequency? Do we take the same approach, or because it's that bit more personal, are there some levels not to go beyond?
The latter. I would say that your sending strategy for SMS should be wildly different than your sending strategy for email. Our recommendation is to not send more than 3 or 4 texts a month to your customers unless you have a drop strategy or a launch strategy that encourages a daily text message or a weekly text message, as Kunle was talking about earlier. With that being said, some brands do like to have two-way conversations with customers. So your texting frequency will certainly go up if that's the case. But from a promotional standpoint, outside of transactional SMS, I would say the less is more approach, because this is the channel that people are talking to their friends and family on. The minute that you start spamming is when you're going to get an unsubscribe.
Got it. Let's see if we can hear Gabe. No, still can't hear you. You are welcome to leave and come back if you think that might. Oh, hold on a second. No, now. Try now. No. How bizarre. Sorry, the echo's clearly. No. Although you're now saying you're muted. You're now not muted.
It's like he doesn't recognize his headphones and mic anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very weird, isn't it? Gabe, do you want to log out and then log back in again? And we'll hopefully get you back in for the next... No, I still can't hear you. We'll hopefully get you back in for the next question. Yeah, bye. Come back in a minute.
Yay, technology. So much fun.
It'll be okay. Okay, cool. So that was my question on... See, now we've got snarled up in testing. I forgot my question. Oh, yes, here we go. Here's a good question from Adam Bastock. He's asking a big question, which is, what's the best way to measure the value of an email address? Silence.
Yeah. Are
You
we
can ask
talking about like
questions.
revenue per recipient? Is that kind of what we're leaning towards?
Yeah, we're in this kind of world of what's an email address worth to me?
Got to look at the data, I guess.
There's a lot
right?
into that. It's the KPIs that you're already measuring divided by the size of the list. But then if you take that approach, then you're going to meet diminishing returns if you just start a lot of folks.
And my answer is switch it off for the next quarter.
I like that.
Don't email. Just switch everything off and then keep it going.
Then you'll know.
See how quickly someone yells, "Turn it back on!" Gabe, can we hear you?
I hope so.
Yay!
Oh, yeah,
Woo! Brilliant. Who cares what else went on in the webinar? We got you back.
That's right.
Do not mute again.
Okay, I will not.
Do not mute again. So we're now talking about, and the guys are really pleased I've asked this question. Really pleased. How do we quantify the value of an email address?
Gosh, so one of the things that we released at Omnisend, which, we talk about like vanity metrics and this kind of stuff, but one thing that we like to look at is we released a new dashboard that shows you the amount of customers that are first-time purchasers versus repeat buyers. Now, the complexity of all of this is that there's a number of people setting up email addresses where they send their marketing campaigns to. So they click or open an email and then they buy with a different email address, which is great because that means we're getting multiple records, all kinds of fun stuff, and that can definitely skew the metrics. But I would say the value of the email address is probably time to convert. I think that's probably the biggest metric that we can look at. So once you get an email address on your list, how long does it take them to actually purchase? And I think that's going to be a good metric you can kind of relatively easily calculate in terms of just even segmenting, which you can do in KLAVIYO, you can do in Omnisend. Is just, hey, I want everyone who signed up in the last 31 days and placed an order. What percentage of those people have I achieved? And so if this month you have 1,000 people signed up and 100 of them have purchased, 10% conversion rate on an email address is not too bad. But that could be like a benchmark. You kind of start then tracking month over month. So the next month, I hit 8%. Okay, what did I change in my content marketing strategy? What new automations have I turned on? What new automations do I need to incorporate? Next month, I get to 15% of the people who signed up have made a purchase. What have I done differently? Those are the things. Of course, you have social media spend, which that's a whole nother topic. Drives me nuts. I can't believe how much people spend on Facebook advertising for a 1.2 to 1 return on ad spend. If anyone could ever explain that to me coming from email, I'm like 40 to 1. 40 to 1 is like bare minimum good. And you're like spending 7 figures on Facebook advertising. Anyway, sorry, that's a tangential. I get very passionate about that piece of it. So sorry.
It is. Yeah. I mean, I would say I totally get why people are spending money on acquisition as well as this. But when you're looking at amount of resource, especially team time deployed towards different channels, it can be utterly infuriating when they go, "Oh, we haven't got time to set up an abandoned basket, but we've got the next 3 weeks to run ads on Spotify." And
right.
Yeah.
Really?
That stuff is not cheap, man.
No.
Yeah.
But what I'm kind of getting from that is that there's kind of like the way you use this metric to measure everybody. We are dealing with the echo or we will lose Gabe again. So we are dealing with the echo. So we've kind of got, and I love the idea of how quickly you can convert an email address and using that as a way to improve your email marketing. And I suppose from that, you could then work out how much that's worth to you in money and therefore how much you could afford to spend on those horrible Facebook ads to bring in the data. Kunle, would you're commenting on that?
Absolutely. Gabe has raised a brilliant point, and it's a funnel. But I'm just going to politely disagree with the whole Facebook advertising thing, because what Facebook does, or what acquisition does, is it provides email with a basket. So you'd acquire people, but with the right email collection strategy on your website, you're not just focused on the acquisition. You're focused on email collection, which is a micro conversion. So let's say I send 1,000 people through to my site. I get 2% or even a 1% conversion rate. Still not sort of made the money back. I could hit a 15%, 10%, 20% email conversion rate, which just makes all our jobs easier. So if you look at it from that funnel, you also really need to look at it from the point of view, how am I collecting the emails? A conversion from collected from an out of stock product page where it's like, enter your email and we'll let you know when we're in stock. And then you put a flow there to whenever it's in stock, you put a back in stock flow will convert much higher than just a welcome series, or even one that has motivation, linked to it in terms of like get 10% off your first, purchase, or 20% off your first purchase. So it's really nuanced and just dependent on the cues or what you put, the incentives you put, just up front. Mm-hmm. And then you can measure that, the conversion window, and then you optimize, based on the various email collection points.
Yeah, I do. I love, this is the first time I've ever heard anyone, anyway, sorry, getting distracted by the comments coming in from the audience. But what I quite like, because I've never heard that speed to convert. That feels like new news to me. And I like that because it's both that metric to improve what automations and what stuff you're doing, but it's also a much better way to assess the value of an input stream, the quiz versus the footer versus a Facebook ad, in terms of how well the people you recruit convert in the same time span, because you're not going, well, the people who then came in on this welcome sequence did that in the welcome sequence. You're taking that whole view of them, which I rather like. We are about to run out of time. Anna, I don't understand the question you've put there, so we'll have to deal with that one afterwards. So what, or if you can type very, very quickly, we may manage to get more, but you're not typing, so we're probably, you are typing. Okay, I shall waffle a bit longer. We've only got 5 minutes left. So I was going to say, guys, I've kind of wrapped that one up a bit quick. So was there anything, if that's still not helping, sorry. Why use Facebook ads to get them on your list?
Yeah, no, I do think it's Facebook advertising obviously is a necessity, right? Acquisition marketing is a huge important thing that people need to get. You need to get your name out there so that people can get on your email list, and that's extremely important. So I tease about Facebook advertising because I'm dealing with marketing budgets, and Omnisend starts at $15 a month basically, and so when people complain to me about email spend, and I know how much they're spending on Facebook advertising, I just want to take my computer on them.
Definitely on the email side for sure.
Hit them over the head with the Bronto dinosaur. That's what we want to do.
Right? And the other thing is, to everyone's point, is you have to have the email part in place if you're going to spend a bunch of money on driving traffic, because not everyone is going to convert right away. So all that time, energy, and effort that you spend for organic and paid social, if you have no email flows, it's just like your leaky little bucket, right? Your email is the catch-all for everything else.
Yeah.
Very true. Anyone got any last thoughts they want to add before I wrap up what we've been talking about here today?
Well, since I got muted on the last question, I was going to talk about hyper segmentation on campaign sending, and I think it ties well into what we're doing with SMS and Corinne at Postscript. The big thing people need to realize is that if I'm sending an email about a big sale, I don't need to send an SMS with the same content at the exact same time, because the people on your SMS list are also on your email list. And so you don't need to do that, right? I've started working with customers doing hyper engaged, kind of like your VIP segment. That's your SMS. If you want to send them an email reminder later in the day because they didn't convert or whatever, and you want to remind them that the product dropped for them first, that's great. And then, who you're sending to doesn't have to be the same every day. So that's my thing. And that's why I think SMS can really be successful. I'm sure Corinne has way more knowledge about that, but that's where I would start.
Cool.
Yeah, I will say that it's not a one size fits all strategy for anyone. There are brands that are super unique who have built their SMS lists to be larger than their email lists. There are brands that don't want them to intersect at all. And then there are brands that cross-pollinate and send campaigns to their email subscribers and encouraging them to sign up for SMS. But I do agree with you in that sending the same language to both channels at once is never a good strategy. So timing and all that, segmentation is definitely important.
Well, we are going to end on that very sensible piece of advice. And I'm just going to sum up and say that there's been a brilliant debate from our guests. So thank you very much, panelists, for joining us. We've had here Corinne Watson from Postscript.io, and you can find out more about them at Postscript.io. That's the SMS marketing platform. Kunle Campbell from 2x eCommerce. You can find out more about him and listen to his brilliant podcast at 2xecommerce.com. Gabe Macaluso is very easy to find on LinkedIn, and he's joining us from Omnisend, and you can get your free trial of Omnisend at omnisend.com/masterplan. And last but definitely not least is the marvelous Jessica Totillo Costa from eCommerce Badassery. And you can get a free discovery call with her via ecommercemasterplan.com/crew, because she's one of my eCommerce Masterplan crew. And you can find out more about them via that link too. Coming up next month, i.e. tomorrow, on Keep Optimizing, we are getting into, for the very first time, the subject of affiliate marketing. Love it, hate it. We are going to be going through how to make it work for you. We are starting off with the brilliant Rick McGinnis, who's going to talk about reviving an existing affiliate account, because I know a lot of you out there have got ones you set up and you just left it alone and let the voucher code guys do their own thing. We are going to talk to you in that episode about how to stop doing that and do it properly. We've then got how to drive full price sales, another hot topic in affiliates. How do you drive non-discounted sales? We're talking about that with Amy from WebGains. Then we're talking about finding new affiliates, because it's a big old slog to do that. But Chris has got some great strategies and some great tools to make it a lot easier, super easier. It's come on so much in the last couple of years. And then we're rounding up. At the end, we're doing how to get started with, but it all made sense in my head when I set the schedule up at the time. We're going to do how to get started with affiliates with Arlen Robinson from OSI Affiliate Software, where we will include talking about, do you do it on one of the big networks, the Trade Doublers, the WebGains, all those kind of guys, or do you do it on your own affiliate marketing software? So that's what's coming up next month. And we will be doing a webinar about all of that, like this one, but about affiliates and not talking about Bronto or KLAVIYO, when we get to the 5th of May, that one, date confirmed yesterday. So put that one in your diaries and you'll be able to sign up to that from tomorrow. Thank you everyone for joining us. I know we managed to answer quite a few questions, so I hope you've all enjoyed it. Replay will be available very shortly, within about an hour or two. And thanks for joining us today. So bye from all of us.
Thanks, Chloe.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe.